This episode is sponsored by United Refrigeration and Westermeyer Industries, revolutionizing your HVACR experience. Visit URI.com for all your HVACR needs, offering real-time inventory, personalized pricing, and a nearby stock feature. Access quick pick replacement parts and branch details effortlessly. With 350 plus fully stocked locations across North America, our knowledgeable staff are ready to assist with the solutions you need. Exclusive offer. Use code ARPOD on URI.com to get a $10 gift card when purchasing the Westermeyer oil float, part number W4300-38F. These high-performance floats are not just compatible with their own oil separators, but also available as a crossover model, conveniently stocked at United Refrigeration. That's code ARPOD to claim your $10 gift card. Visit URI.com now.
The Sporlan division of Parker Hannifin proudly sponsors the Advanced Refrigeration Podcast. The Sporlan S3C series of case control products provides safety, security, and service for remote and self-contained refrigerated display appliances. The S3C family of controls includes a case controller, display module, and a valve module that all support open protocol communication via BACnet and Modbus. The peer-to-peer system is capable of standalone or coordinated control of up to 8 refrigerated cases per lineup. Using this family of controls simplifies and shortens the time required to set up new equipment or retrofit an existing system. Ask your local refrigeration wholesaler about the Sporlan S3C series. Parker Sporlan, leading the charge.
So I don't think I'll have a problem with it. And then we can talk about the other thing next week. It's funny. I got 3 of you that call me dad now. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Advanced Refrigeration Podcast. You're with your hosts, Brett Wetzel and Kevin Compass. I almost said the nickname, which would have been really funny, but then you would have laughed and you would have recovered. JC.
Wait, does Dylan call you dad now too?
Yeah, Dylan.
So funny.
Well, that you actually, so you and whatchamacallit, you and Greg, you're in my phone as the kids.
You.
The group chat says the kids. You didn't want your adopted brother in there, so we didn't add him to the chat. How was your week so far? It's already
fucking chaos, like just utter chaos. Everything's on fire, and there's 9 million jobs, and there's not enough people to do them, and everything's burning, and yeah.
Worse than it was last. Is it hot up there in Chicago?
It got warm today, but it's just I was starting up cases today, and it should have been something easy. Had to deal with this Kroger vacuum spec deal that turns into a 2-day vacuum. Whatever, got that done, and then I go to start the cases up, and the anti-sweat controllers are missing on all the cases. So I'm like, that's cool. And then there were Hussman cases, and the jumper bars were missing on the neutrals. So whatever, I have jumper bars. But then the electrician decided to wire. He saw 1, 2, and 3 for the defrost heaters, and he thought that meant 3 phases because it was 3-phase defrost. He thought that each case was 3-phase defrost. So he wired 1, 2, and 3 black, red, blue. That is all the same bus bar. 1, 2, and 3. So it's internally jumped. I caught it before we turned it on because everything else was so wired jacked up. I'm like, looking at it, and I'm like, I remember these being 3-phase. I go, maybe they changed them. Looking at the diagram, I'm like, uh-oh.
Wait, 3-phase heaters for the cases?
Yeah.
I've never seen a 3-phase case.
Hill Phoenixes are.
Are they really?
Yeah, but they have 3 legs for you to land the power on.
Okay.
They're just splitting up the heaters.
Yeah.
which is what you do over here. But like so I look at this, I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. Then I'm sitting there on the floor rewiring all these cases, and it wasn't like 5 cases, it was like 15 cases.
Oh, that's fun.
It's a bunch of 2 and 3 doors.
So he ran a whole bunch of extra electrical he didn't need to run.
Yeah, not that much. You figure in each case is 10, 15 feet of wire where they spurred off of the
main run, yeah.
Yeah,
right.
Because it spurred off in a bunch of spots, and I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. And then we had a PI valve stuck at the end of the day because it stopped moving for a week, and it's just worn out. So then trying to find a PI valve rebuild kit.
Yeah.
So end up having to get a whole valve because they've been hard to get lately.
Yeah. What are you doing for the rest of the week? Tomorrow's only Friday. You still got to go back to the store?
Start up an Amazon. No, thank God the apprentice is going to take care of the EPR, and I'm going to start up an Amazon. Don't know where yet because there's 4 different ones going on.
That's awesome.
So nobody can figure out where yet. And it's been like utter chaos. And in between that, I've been working on EMS projects every night. You could see by the giant pile of boxes behind me.
Yeah, it looks like it's been moved around a little bit.
It's grown. There's 3 more boxes. I had it down to 2 boxes. Now we're back up to 7 boxes.
Awesome. What are you doing? Are you doing control jobs at the Amazon?
I don't know what I'm doing at the Amazon.
Oh,
it's a mystery.
Surprise.
Yeah. And then I have this data logger on the floor that needs programmed still.
You better step on it. Building some overtime tonight to finish that program, huh?
Been working until 7:30 every night.
Damn. No, I was in Houston yesterday and the day before, which was dumb. I should have just not came home till this morning. But I decided, I was like, yeah, I'll leave the house. My Uber came at 3 o'clock and flight was at 5. And I was like, yeah, I'll just knock it out. But 7 o'clock, I was having a problem with something down at the training center. And I was literally falling asleep standing up. I was like, I need to go back to the hotel. So I ordered food. And then the lady's like, I delivered it. I was like, no, you didn't. She said, I did. I was like, yeah, the hotel that I'm in, the inside's like a yellowish color, not white. She's like, I dropped it off. I was like, no, you didn't. So I walked across the street to the other hotel, and that's where she ended up delivering it. So that was fun. And so I'm back this week, and then I'm going back down to Houston on Sunday. I meant to tell you. I'll be in Chicago soon. I didn't even get to tell you.
Really?
Yeah, the week, I think of 20 something or other.
Interesting.
Yeah. So what are we going to talk about tonight? You want to talk about your awesome vacuums, or you want to talk about, I don't know, what do you want to talk about?
Talk about planning out ball valve replacements and replacing ball valves and not breaking them off. Start with that.
What do you mean not breaking them off? How do you break them off?
Oh my God. You must not have like old stores. Like we have stores out here that like you're lucky if you don't break 1 or 2 pumping a rack down.
Problem is I haven't done any retrofits in a very long time.
Even retrofits, it's like normal day-to-day service. I can't tell you. We have a chain out here, like it's like a 40% chance when you're pumping down cases, you're going to break a ball valve. It's to the point where I carry 10 or 12 5/8 ball valves in my truck. Because usually if we break one, there's 4 more that are like on the cusp. So it's just changing while you got it down.
So the ball valves you have to go to replace somewhere, is that CO2 or is that normal?
It's usually been normal DX, but I mean, we've done some CO2 ones too. We can go over both. Obviously, there's a little bit different direction with that, but normal DX ball valves, like doing the liquid line ones, liquid header ones suck.
So let me ask you a question, because I know some people, I guess it depends on the quote, right? So if someone went there and was like, okay, we need to change these out, we need to change all of them out. I know a lot of times it's a lot easier to basically make your own header and then weld in the header, or is it not?
It depends if it's like accessible, but generally every liquid header I see is behind the rack, behind the suction. Good luck getting 20 ball valves back there and a header. I don't know. The way I usually do it is split it up into 2 different. I'll pump down if it's that many ball valves, and if I have a quick fitter with me, Dude, we could probably change 20 ball valves in an hour.
Fair enough.
If not more. If you pre-prep them out in to where it's only 2 connections, like especially if you have to put a stub on there, pre-weld them all on, put the stub on, weld the coupling to the point where it's just slice, burn off, and lift out, and then just drop the ball valves back on and start burning them. One guy fitting, one guy burning, just right behind you. You fit it up and rag it, and the next guy goes and burns it. And then you just keep moving on, keep going, like an assembly line. That's how I always do the liquid line ones, because they're not that bad.
Do you put extender ends on both sides of the ball valve so you're farther away, so you're less likely to have to burn up the valve? Not that you're going to do that because of your experience. For anyone trying to fight with trying to braze up and around like this,
usually not the bottom ones. We usually just let the bottom ones be. Yeah, we usually just let the bottom ones be. Suction ball valves, that's a different animal. We'll talk about that next. But as for liquids, though, like pumping it down, I usually valve off the main liquid line ball valve and then start letting it pump down. And then what I do is I take discharge gas and I force it into the liquid header.
Mm-hmm.
And then while that's happening, I start valving off all the liquid lines, but 1 or 2. And then I pump that system pretty much all the way down. And if it's the one with the ball valve that needs changed, I pump that system all the way down and then pump out the liquid header with that system. And then I shut off a little bit before that. I shut off the hot gas as soon as it gets warm, so that way it forces all that lazy liquid sitting in the bottom to flash out, and then can go back through the cases and then come back through the suction, and then we can pull a vacuum pull the rack into almost a vacuum with the compressor.
Obviously, since you're going to be doing this and you are working on older equipment, it probably behooves you to make sure the exhaust fan is working in that mechanical room if you're in there, if you're not already up on the roof, just to make sure, because otherwise
exhaust fans.
Yeah, what do you mean you have you don't have you gotta have exhaust fan? Gosh. Is that why you have like 20 Milwaukee fans?
Yeah, seriously. 100% serious. It's providing you fresh air while you're burning.
See, that's the one thing that I hated about brazing on old stuff, especially if you got to do something large. I remember having to change out a heat exchanger, and all of a sudden it was working fine. Like everything held, everything was straight. We were burning in a heat exchanger that went to the bullseye remote header, and no pressure. We were all good. Then when we started trying to braze together the new 2-in-1 or 2-in-5, whatever that heat exchanger is, then it got really smoky and really stinky really quick. So sometimes what you have to do is put on your vacuum pump and try to expel that air elsewhere, so you're not breathing in that exhaust that you're basically creating through your vacuum pump.
Yeah, I mean, what else works? The
hose
on the vacuum pump.
Yes.
Yeah. So put a hose in the end of the vacuum pump.
What it depends on what kind of vacuum pump do you have?
I don't know. The field piece ones all have a hose bib fitting on there.
Oh, okay. I didn't know which vacuum pump you had. I didn't know if you've referred to a couple different ones that you've owned.
The JV ones, you could thread a fitting on the end of those too, because they're 3/4 inch pipe thread.
Yeah, that's what
I'm pretty sure all of them you can.
Yeah, I think you're right, because that's what we used to do when we did ammonia. Even though you're not supposed to use the vacuum pump for ammonia, those ones for ammonia, because they got brass.
A lot of guys doing that though.
Yeah, and because otherwise the vacuum pumps are stupid expensive in order to do that, but they don't last that long because they have brass in them, right? So
leggy brass.
So the brass just gets eaten the hell away. So it lasts a little bit for a while, just not as long as what it does if you're just using it on typical synthetic refrigerants, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's no fun. I tend to not use a recovery machine. I think it takes way too long. I usually use the rack. The rack is the ultimate recovery machine. Obviously, there's going to be times you guys need to, but generally doing the liquid header, like enforcing hot gas in there, you're not going to need to. Now, suction header ball valves become a pain because you got to cut all the armo around it. You may have to cut 2 or 3 valves around its armo away, and then they become a pain to heat because it is a giant heat sink.
Yeah, so especially the older racks where the ball valves are very, very close to each other. If you want to try to cut them out, I've had luck with a tailpipe cutter, works pretty well. I have this other one. I forget who makes it. Shamrock Supply. It's an imp cutter, but I think you have one too. I think it does up to 2 and 3 or something like that.
Yeah, mine does up to 2 and 5. It's a T-Rex. It's called a T-Rex cutter.
Okay.
It's awesome. It'll cut the stub ends off the condensers.
I've never heard of that one.
It's I think it's called. It says T-Rex on it. It's a great
Wheeler Rex. Yeah, so that's all right. Okay, so I was wrong on mine. So that's actually the one I have. I just remembered Shamrock Supply because basically that's who is selling it. But it's this one right here.
Yep.
That's the ones I got. No, that one's pretty badass. You just verifying device. Yeah. Actually, now I'm thinking of, I think mine is different because I don't think mine actually says Wheeler on it, but it looks identical to this. But they also have, this is what I was talking about before, tailpipe cutter. You can get this from an auto part. There we go. Something like this.
Yeah, those are okay. You know what works real good? A Sawzall. Don't act like everybody hasn't used a Sawzall for that stuff before. Don't come at me with that pretentious bullshit.
I'm not saying that no one's
there is a time and place where, you know what? It's time for the Sawzall and a file. Just make sure you get the
filters. You make sure the elements are in there.
Vacuum cleaner and you vacuum out the hole where it is. Like you get the nice carbide tip blades. It'll slice through like hot butter. Don't act like you've never cut one out with a Sawzall.
I'm not saying I never have.
Yeah.
But it's not the right thing to do.
It's not the right thing to do, but sometimes the right thing feels so much better. Or the wrong thing.
I was gonna say,
switch.
It would have been a lot better if you would have got it. But let's say it again, and I'll cut it out. I'll cut out the wrong thing.
So the other thing that works real good is that Milwaukee tubing cutter, the power cutter,
the arm squeezer 5000, as you refer to it.
The fitter finger taker.
That's it.
I mean, the smaller one works great for like smaller EPRs and smaller ball valves. So that one goes up to 1 inch and 1/8. The new one goes up to 2 and 1/8.
That is scary as shit to me.
Oh, it'll whack your hand clean off. So
that's an awesome advertisement for Milwaukee. This pipe cutter will take your arm clear off.
Around the bandsaw, it'll cut through you like butter.
What size does the Milwaukee one do?
Up to 2 1/8. The new one.
Oh my god. Just wait till they make one that does up to 4 inch.
I'm sure they will. They make everything else. So like suction ball valves though, guys, I generally burn them off. And when you're burning them off, just be aware that there's a fireball coming. As soon as that ball valve comes loose, there's a fireball right behind it because that whole header is full of oil.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
But most of the time, burning them off is easier than most of the time with suction ball valves. You don't have the room.
I literally just had this conversation with someone about like whenever you're removing any type of valve or whatever, you're always supposed to cut it out, preferably, just so you don't have the Fireball 3000.
Yeah, but how many times on a rack can you actually do that? Not very much. Not very often.
Dude, those cutters fit in there just fine.
Yeah, okay, I don't know where your racks are, but some of the ones we got, like you can't even get a normal imp 1.5 cutter on there.
Really?
Yeah, some of them you don't have stubs. Like some of those old Super Plus racks where they weld the ball valves basically almost touching the header.
Okay, all right, fair enough. All right, I got it. The ones that have the 4 bolts on there that actually
bolt. It's the 4 bolt ones, the ones that are shorter than those. They had those old Henry ones that were like mini stubs.
Oh, those are lame. Okay, all right, fair enough. Gotcha.
So hot gas ball valves, generally, those ones are pain. So depending on how it is, you may have to pump the whole rack down. We've had some where we've gone to go do hot gas ball valves. We can't get the header down because when you drop the header pressure, it's bleeding back through the solenoids.
And there's no ball valves before the solenoids?
No, the ball valves are at the solenoids for the hot gas headers.
Mm-hmm.
You got ball valve, then solenoid, then dumps into the circuit.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you basically would have to pump down the whole damn thing.
We've had times where I've had them where they seal up fine, you're fine, but I've also had times where we've gone to go do them and they're blowing backwards through the solenoids. So just be aware, you may have flow backwards through the solenoids. I generally just grab my hand in there and you feel where it's getting colder at, and then it'll tell you which one's doing it. That's generally what I do with that. And then big ball valves, they're always a pain. Come along, and I don't know how many valves I've changed with the come along. Like having to peel back piping a little bit.
3-way valves are the absolute freaking worst.
Yep.
Like every time someone's, there's the 3-way valves, I'm like, at least try rebuilding it. And they're like, why? I was like, please try. Because I don't know what it is. It looks like they took on a lot of those, right? There's different shapes of 90 that they make with what looks like one of the EMT benders, like the big electrical ones that the electricians use to make the actual pipe, almost like the 90-degree angles that are on like the compound Carlisle.
You're never getting that with a fitting.
No, because you're not supposed to you'd have to use like a close quarter, and you're not supposed to.
There's been times where we used to close quarter 90.
Just saying you're not supposed to. But if you had one of those benders or back at your shop and you knew you're doing like one of the compounds or whatever, you could have that at your shop and then make the fittings and just cut it, have it longer, right? So you at least have that angle. But sometimes some of those 90s on those racks there's no way that you can make the same exact shape with just fitting 90s together.
Yes, we burn them off. That's why we burn them off.
Just cut them out.
Yeah, so what I've found with the 3-way valves, the way I've been doing them lately, is I'll get couplings, and the two straight pieces going up, I'll get couplings, and I'll file the ridge out of them and make them slips, and then mark them. So that way, all we got to do is unsweat the 90 piece from there, and then we could just line it right back up. But I also have 245 tips. If we're doing big ball valves, I'm getting a rig, 100%. We're getting a full-size rig and a service rig, or a rig and 2 splitters.
Yeah, nothing is worse than trying to keep having someone change out the bottles on the pony rig when you're trying to keep it heated up and you're like already had burned through all the oxy and settling.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing a bunch of ball valves with the small rig. I'm getting a full-size rig with a 45 tip, especially if we're doing bigger stuff. Like that 45 tip will cherry a piece of 2 and 5. Getting 2 of them that you can keep enough heat on there to get it loose. Let's be honest, we've done some ball valves with pressure on them too. Like, we've opened the ball valve up and let it piss through. What are you going to do? There's times where stuff doesn't hold, and you open the ball valve up and let it piss through while you burn it and shut it.
So there's a couple. So what Kevin's referring to, if you don't understand, so if you have a little bit of pressure and you've obviously tried the vacuum pump to pull down the pressure, and it's just something back somewhere is not holding. Sometimes you just have to leave the ball valve open because the refrigerant's going to go the path of least resistance, right? And you weld the weld that you need to, and then once that's solid, then basically close off the ball valve, and then you should be straight. Same thing with if I've done this in the past, just on trying to braze in expansion valves and stuff. You're trying to braze something in, and you got pressure blowing out at you, and there's nothing you can do. There's something somewhere that's holding it out. You've already had everything down for whatever. You can pull the strainer, and if you can't do that, sometimes what you can do is utilize just drill into the suction line and put a stinger right into the suction line, and then that way you can do your fittings and then let the refrigerant blow out of the stinger, because now you can braze where the stinger goes in the piece of pipe, and then the last piece you're going to put in is the Schrader fitting.
The Schraders work great, like letting it piss through there.
Otherwise, you're fighting it. And the same thing with what you said about the rig, man. Like I said, on that heat exchanger that we had to replace, that was either 2 and 1 or 2 and 5. And once again, that steel acted like a freaking heat sink, and it was like just sucking all the heat that you were just blowing on that fitting.
Worst one I've done is one of those Hill Phoenix 3-inch heat exchangers.
The ones that are coming out of the heat exchangers for like the Cascade or the glycol racks.
Yeah.
Awful.
Dude,
Awful.
me and my buddy Steve did one when I was at Midwest, and we had 2 torch rigs, 2 service rigs with 445 tips, trying to heat that shit up, and it was I had it cut with a bandsaw in the middle, and I had a come along wrapped around the cup, and we were pulling on it, and finally when it did, when we got it after 20 minutes, it seemed like it popped and shot across the room.
Today's episode is sponsored by the RefRush RDP Series differential pressure monitors from Westermeyer Industries, now available for transcritical CO2 systems in addition to other common pressures and refrigerants. When the filter element of your coalescing oil separator is contaminated, it can hurt your system's performance and efficiency. But how do you know when it's time to replace that filter? Wait too long to replace, and you could end up with a nasty filter blowout. But replacing too often can be a waste of time and money. The answer is installing a differential pressure monitor. The RDP Series differential pressure monitors, including the new transcritical CO2 model, are available now from Westermeyer Industries. To find out more information, email sales@westermeyerin.com. That's WESTERMEYERIN.com.
In a giant flaming ball of molten metal.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, because if you don't put it exactly on the same way, now you have to reroute your liquid lines that are attached to it.
Oh, yeah, and it was different. It was different because they didn't make that one anymore.
Oh, so like sometimes they have the one where, both liquid lines are on the one side, and now I think all of them are basically one liquid line stabbing is over here, and then the other liquid line stabbing is over in the other general area, right? Like across from it, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that doesn't make it fun at all. I found your 2-inch pipe cutter, by the way. I was looking for it. I've never seen the 2-inch.
Oh, yeah. Supposedly it's not out yet, but like 4 of the fitters here got it. But they pre-ordered it.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is beefy. Like,
I see that.
You could knock somebody clean out with that thing.
Look at it. In comparison to someone holding that pipe? Jesus.
Yeah. Oh, it's dangerous. Now let's talk about the CO2 side of things. This is where things get spicy. Okay, so liquid ball valves on CO2 obviously are a pain in the ass. They take forever. You got to get everything pumped out, and you got to get the liquid out. If it's in the store, it's even more of a pain. Isolating it is, if it's on the store side, you get your main isolations at your flash tank to shut off and pump down. I generally do this a certain way. May not be the way that some people like to do it, but this is how I do it, and I have very good luck with it. So what I do is I take discharge gas from a compressor. Mm-hmm. I try not to use the TC compressors unless I have to, but sometimes you only have that. I use a stainless or high pressure rated hose. I take on the Pookie going on the store side after the ball valve is shut for the flash tank. So you get your ball valve shut, your main liquid going out. Mm-hmm. I start injecting hot gas into the store. Now, you're never going to overpressurize that line with gas out of a Pookie. It's just not going to flow enough.
Oh, okay. I always get confused because the HVAC guys call Pookie the painty stuff that they put on the stuff. You're talking about the Stinger, the
Schrader, even a 3/8 tap. You're not gonna get the flow through there that you would need to do this in a timely manner. Gotcha. So what you're gonna do is you're pushing that gas through there, and you're doing 2 things. You're heating up the line to boil up liquid, and you're pushing the liquid that's sitting in there lazy as it's starting to pump down into the suction. So you want to get that line higher than the suction line so it has flow. So it pushes all that stagnant flow out. And then you lock the compressors on. Let it bake for a little bit. Shut it off. Shut off the line feeding the hot gas in. Lock the compressors on. Mm-hmm. Watch them closely. Make sure they're not cooking and baking. And pump that thing down. I have been able to pump every CO2 rack down with the compressors.
All right. So just recently, and I know you're going to argue, well, it's not a trainer, but like just recently, we took the medium temp on this thing and we ducked it down to about, I think I had it set for 200 because I was trying to show them that you could lower the flash tank, burying the flash tank set point to get more time off, like when doing maintenance on it or whatever. And it didn't like that at all. It went off on core sense. So I forget what the core sense set point was for that. There is a limit.
I've yet to make one go off yet. Like,
okay. Fair enough. I got to put one of those disclaimers in there that
Yeah.
you should be following whatever the operating envelope is of that compressor and not put it any lower than that.
Make compressor go pump. I'm going to be honest to you. I've done it. This is going to be one of those, the gay frog thing.
Putting pharmaceuticals down the drain, making the frogs gay.
Yeah, no, like I've done it a bunch. I've had zero issues, and it works great. I've done it with Copeland's. I've done it with Bitzers. Never done it with those blue compressors though, but it works great. I jam it on, it gets it all out. I'll wait for it to see if it bounces back up 75 pounds, but I'm not worried about it. If I force that hot discharge gas through there, I'm not worried about it. Then go inside the store, make sure there's no pressure, then cut your ball valve out.
And you can utilize your pressure transducers on your cases to verify
Correct.
that as well. So you do have a little bit of a safeguard, the chances of because that way you can actually see what that pressure is out there.
Correct. Like it's so whatever I need to do for that, like it's not a big deal. Now, the main ball valve on the receiver or the drop leg is where everything gets difficult.
You had to change that one?
I've had to change a couple of them.
Why?
We've had them leak from the get. We've had them break. Those Ithaca ball valves or Italian ball valves.
Okay. I've never. I don't think I know which ones you're talking about. Are those the same ones that make the check valves that have a leaky leak at the weld there?
Yes.
Are you talking to Zach? Is Zach talking shit?
No, God, no. He's not talking to anybody right now. He's very upset. So what is it? The Ithaca ball valves, they're silver soldered. Some of them are silver soldered, some of them are socket done. Now, if you're doing stainless, this is where it becomes a problem. Like you're gonna have to get a TIG welder in there and it's gonna take time. And you have to make sure that you could actually get to it. So it's not like you're just burning it. Like it's gonna take some time and some prep. So that's a whole nother thing. But if you're doing like brazed on ball valves and it's the main liquid ball valve leaving the flash tank, then yeah, you're gonna have to blow the whole flash tank. Now, what I generally do is I try to force as much of that liquid into the gas cooler as I can. So I will go until it high heads like 2 or 3 times. Let it get as much out.
You said Ithaca? Because the only ones that I'm coming up with is the
Italica or whatever. I don't know.
No, because the one I'm finding is the NDL Industries ones.
No, they're not those ones. It's the ones that they're Italica.
Okay. I'll keep looking. Go ahead. Continue.
Yeah, so those ones, it's not that big of a deal. But like what you have to do is back as much gas up in there as you can and then let it sit and then start forcing discharge gas into the receiver tank to push the rest out. Get it warmed up. Same thing. You want to get that discharge gas in there, get it warmed up, get it to move out, and get it out, and then you're gonna have to start blowing it. What I generally do is once I got the discharge gas in there and I'm high heading, I can't go anymore. I will valve off as much as I can, and I'm gonna start blowing it. So either start blowing the suction, or you're going to start shutting all the EEVs in the store and shut the suctions and try to trap it. Or you're going to take it and you're going to start blowing it out of a relief. So I'll take a relief off and thread a fitting into it and then blow it out a hose.
Fair enough.
That's the easiest way to get it out.
What else are you going to do? What other options do you have besides the House of Pain option that you have, where the recovery machine starts jumping around? What are you going to do? Seriously.
It's not, or you go into another rack with it if you have one.
That's an option, but I don't know. I don't think I've so far thus yet seen it CO2, like a store that actually has two CO2 racks, other than on the larger scale. You know what I mean?
We've had a couple, 4. Costco has 4.
On a site?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, Costco has 4 racks. If you're doing the drop leg ball valve, this is where it becomes a problem. If there's not 2, the drop leg ball valves and the receiver ball valve got to be the worst. If you're doing the drop leg on the TC side and it's TIG welded in, that's obviously going to take a while, but you get everything out of the gas cooler, that's no different than any other condenser. So high head it. And then I've also done this. We've forced the high pressure valve shut after we've high headed it. If there's no other ball valve in the receiver, which usually there's a ball valve there, but force the high pressure valve shut. And then we've blown the condenser off, the gas cooler off.
So that brings up an interesting question, and I really don't know the answer to. Because it is transcritical, if you were to blow it down because it's in the plasma E state, does it then turn into dry ice? I guess maybe it would if there would be.
It would be rapid, I would think, but it's pretty hot still. The thing is, especially when you're high heading it, dude, that condenser holds heat for a while, especially when you get the fans off. So while you're doing it, you got the fans off, so that thing is hot. You're talking 200 plus degrees in that coil. It's holding heat for a while. It goes pretty quick. Like you could usually blow a gas cooler down in about 20 minutes.
So you just blow it out the gas cooler and stack everything in there, and then blow it out from there.
Yep. Just stack it all in the receiver and stack it all in the store, and then blow it out the gas cooler. Change your ball valve real quick, and then have somebody watch the receiver and just blow it at the top and just let it go.
That's interesting. I never thought about doing it that way.
Okay, how would you do it?
What you said before? You said you're changing the drop leg one?
Yep.
I guess stack everything in there. Yeah, because there's only one ball valve. Yeah, there wouldn't be another option. You'd have to either blow the receiver or blow the gas cooler.
I blow the gas cooler and I shut the high pressure valve and use that. I've yet to have one not hold.
That makes more sense anyway.
Yeah, I've yet to have one of these high pressure valves not hold on me.
I think you're more apt to have better luck with that closing than you are the ball valve.
Yeah, and there's been some of these ball valves, especially the Hill Advancer racks. Dude, don't be afraid to put a pipe on there. Yeah.
On what?
On the ball valves for the discharge or the ball valves for the liquid leaving. Dude, I have a 4-foot cheater bar in my van for those. So they feel like they're seized, dude. Like I have been on them like all my might, like pulling on a ball valve, my feet on the pipe, and my 200-pound ass can't move that shit without a pipe.
That's really interesting. Okay.
And then same thing, if they aren't seating, once you get them almost all the way closed, you got to pull the handle off. You got to stick up like a 12-inch crescent on there and a pipe on the end of it to seat it the rest of the way, because the handle ends up hitting before the valve shut all the way. I've had it on at least 15 of those things where we can't get them to pump down. You pull the handle off and the valve is just stuck. It needs like another 16th of an inch, and then it's closed, but it hits the handle and pops back.
Gotcha. So this is what I was going to show. I know you said about that you haven't had one shut off on high discharge, but I just want to make this known.
Here's Brett's operating envelope where you
I'm
can't
just
do things.
freaking telling you, because I put it all the way down to -4 and it's working outside of it. So that discharge temperature is going to be stupid freaking high.
It's working outside of it. So does every self-contained compressor that's getting murdered in every kitchen.
Fine. I'll put my operating envelope back away. I'm just saying you're running it farther than what God intended it for it to be doing.
Yeah, so does every independent customer that runs a rack. Look at every 30-year-old condenser in Dallas.
What do you mean? It's not that bad.
Yeah. Other than that, suction ball valves on the CO2 side aren't really that bad. If you get lucky, you can close branch circuits inside. We've had that where that's the only nice thing about CO2 is a lot of them have branch circuits in them, and a lot of them have suction ball valves inside cases and stuff. So there's always more ball valves you can close down the line.
So I got a question for you. So what happens when you try to stow any more pressure within say you don't isolate down the cases, right? And you're trying to stack all that shit in there and you're trying to replace a ball valve that's up the rack on the suction.
Depends.
Sometimes you have to pump the whole thing down.
Depends on whether it's get the ball valves with the check valves. I dislike those tremendously for suction ball valves.
Yeah.
I'd rather have you put yourself in a weird spot because sometimes they check a little bit early and they get put in the wrong way. I'm not a big fan of those on the suction. Liquid, they work fine. Like the suction ball valves, not a big fan because sometimes you can't backwards isolate stuff.
Yeah, you'd end up, like I said, you'd end up having to pump everything down legitimately. You can't stack it in there because if God forbid the pressure does rise while you're trying to work on the ball valves closest to the rack.
Main ball valves should have no check valves because then you can't.
Manufacturers, they do it, which is silly.
What, put check valves there? Yeah. Look at Carnot. Like now they're putting tags, which I think is awesome. They got away from half the check valves. Now they're just putting tags there. Just say danger.
Be careful. Yeah, 100%.
It makes it more serviceable.
And there's some things, one of the lessons that everyone's learned with CO2 is mitigation of losing refrigerant. And some things don't make any sense. I still don't understand why they don't take the industrial approach with sight glasses and level indicators, right? So if you look at an old school Hill Phoenix pump liquid system, they have a tree in the back that you can isolate and then basically just blow down that section of that system. So any other time that you have any sort of level indicator, Hansen rod, I don't give a shit what it is, on a CO2 receiver, 99% of the time, what do you got to do? You have to blow it. There's no other option to do that. So spend the extra, whatever the hell it's going to be, to put an access on the side there, because it's going to end up saving the customer so much more money. You could do it with the rack still running. You wouldn't have to worry about it. You isolate it, blow it off, whatever you have to do in order to get that refrigerant out of that tree. No harm, no foul. They've done it on industrial for years.
Yep. And I've been bitching about it on the racks. Like it's shit. I can't pump down the rack. I had a manufacturer, like we went to go pump down the rack to fix a leak on the suction header. I had to blow the whole charge. In the store, I had to pump everything in the receiver, and what I couldn't get, I had to blow a charge because they had ball valves with check valves, and when I lowered the receiver or the suction header pressure lower, the ball valves checked into the rack.
So you still had pressure in the cases.
Yep.
And then it ended up checking around, and then so when you blew it down, it just inevitably. So yeah, you would have had to blow whatever was in the piping in order to accomplish that, and close every single compressor at that point as well.
Every single compressor had to get closed, and I had to blow all the piping. I had to blow all the whole store, and I couldn't fit it all in a receiver. So we ended up having to add 15 tanks of CO2 by the time we were done.
I understand. I don't know. There needs to be better training on serviceability, and I guess it's a liability thing. It would be for the manufacturers, right? They don't want to make sure no one gets hurt. I understand that. But then look, you have other manufacturers that have been doing these style racks, Carnot, for a very long time. And so they're doing it. Why doesn't anyone else take note from what they're doing?
Yeah. And the only time they're doing that stuff is if it's customer spec, like they have to add these parts in. It makes it cheaper. Like when you don't need 78 check valves in there for nothing, for some just. If you have 78 check valves in there to stop one person from shutting a ball valve, and then it makes the cost of the equipment maintenance 50 times more for the next 20 years, it makes no sense to me.
I get it doing it the cases, right? You have the people usually use hot water to de-ice cases. If you don't pump it down properly, I get it. But like in main service ports on there, the rack actual suction valves, why?
Yeah, or loop ball valves. Never understood why loop ball valves should have 100% shut off capabilities.
Because
You're shutting them off for service. Nobody's getting up in the ceiling 30 feet in the ceiling from the store, shutting a ball valve and shutting both of them.
or make it standard that there's some other thing in there, right? So whether it be a gauge, put a freaking gauge up on there. You want some kind of safety, look at it with taps, and then you can actually verify before you actually pump it down and make sure the gauges are actually reading. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense because I think it adds a whole bunch of time to a lot of these service calls and jobs that have to be done. And who's going to complain about it? This took X amount. That's the way it was designed. What do you want me to do?
Yeah. Same thing with oil separators. Like, I think any manufacturer that is putting out an oil separator and a CO2 rack without ball valves on both sides and a bypass is doing everybody a disservice, is doing the customer a disservice. They're doing it shouldn't even be a sellable thing. Should be industry standard practice. If you're getting a filtered oil separator, you're getting ball valves and a bypass, and there should be no reason to ever shut it off. Same thing with liquid dryers, ball valves and a bypass. Yeah, but you're talking money. You want to be cheap in the beginning. It's going to cost you 50 times more later on. But again, it comes out of different budgets. But at the end, like, you're talking downtime, and I've seen an oil separator change go from bad to worse in 20 minutes, 30 minutes with the rack being off, especially when it's hot. Like, it is what it is. But I think it should be standard things. There should be no other option. Like, you can't order an oil separator without bypass ball valves.
Like when the nut drops down, like directly into all the oil, and then you have to fish it out.
That stays in there. It's fine. It'll sort itself out.
Edit number at 50 mark, just letting me know.
Stop it. Don't act like you fished every single one of those out. Not when the rack's going.
Hey, you got a 3D printer? I have a great idea. Let's start putting railroad horns on the release. I think that'll be fun.
They are so loud sometimes, especially those blue ones. Holy shit! See, it's really bad. Like, I work at Costco a lot, and they have that air compressor in there that like vents down all the time. And I swear to God, I have such bad PTSD from that damn air compressor. Like, it goes off, and it scares the shit out of me every time. Like, I was working in a DX warehouse, an old DX warehouse the other day, and it goes off, and I'm like, instantly just like looking around, head down, like looking for the release to go. And I'm like, air compressor, I swear to God.
Let me ask you a question. Did it start happening more when you started working on CO2 racks? I think that might be it. Because I think the amount of reliefs that you've probably seen blow on regular DX racks has been probably ill to none.
No, one time I blew a relief on a DX rack because I put a number in the wrong spot in a Danfoss system.
But my point is that you probably didn't start having this PTSD from when those compressors unload when they're done compressing. Secret, by the way, if it's cycling a whole bunch.
No, this is the drain. They have an auto drain on there.
No, they do. Okay. So that's what it is. No, because I've seen. I had there was a compressor when I worked on the East Coast. I worked on a Costco, and this thing was turning on and off constantly. And I hit the side of the tank with a wrench, and it was filled probably 3/4 of the way up with water because the drain was not working. So it just kept short cycling, just filling up the compressed air like here. That's it, like just a little bit in the top there.
Yeah, no, like this. I definitely have. And then of course it always goes off when you're like turning a system back on. Like when you're like you just fix something, you pull the vacuum, and you're getting ready to like turn it. You like turn a liquid ball valve on. Like every time, it's just like instant PTSD with that. Like I swear.
Yeah, but
all right, guys. Thanks for listening.
Nope. See you guys later.